Good morning, friends. And before I bring Clifford on the screen, let me first introduce him. So, guys, demonstrating ethical practice is essential in building trust and credibility in the field of coaching, workplace, and even in the personal life. If you see ethical behavior means adhering to the set of principles, values that guide decision making in your work, in your personal life, and everywhere. It may include things like being honest, transparent, respectful in all the interactions, maintaining confidentiality. That is another important thing, avoiding conflict of interest. And if you're able to consistently display this ethical behavior, then coaches, organizations, all of us can build more trust with our clients, colleagues, relationships, everything that we have in our life. And we can probably build a positive reputation in this community. However, knowing ethical practice is one thing, but demonstrating is something else. You may be knowing all ethical practices, but yet may not be able to demonstrate in a way that people around you also aligns with it. And so, here is my good friend and seasoned HR professional, Clifford Mohan Pai. He has 3 decades of experience working across senior leadership roles at various established organizations. And it is across industries. Take it surveys, biotechnology, clinical research, pharmaceutical, FMCG, IT, and whatnot. Even startups he has worked with. He's an alumnus of Maharashtra Institute of Labor and Studies, and he is currently working as President, HR Head, APAC and EMEA, and he's also a Global Head, Employee Relations with Infosys BPM. And you will see him very regular speaker at most of the reputed HR forums, colleges, management institutes. He is also a PCC from International Coaching Federation, professional coach, and a GPHR from HR Certification Institute. So fortunately, we did PCC from ICF together, and during one of our interaction in a peer coaching session, it amazed me to hear Clifford's story. And in this episode of Up Talks with Vineet, I wanted to bring this to the world. Let's hear out his inspiring story and understand what are the strategies for demonstrating ethical practice, particularly in daily life, coaching, as well as in the workplace. So let's have Clifford on the screen, and here we go. Hey, Clifford, how are
Hey,
you?
hey, Vinny, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your very, very tall introduction. Uh, Appreciate having me on this show of yours. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Clifford. I had to cut down the introduction. I had so many things to talk about you, Clifford, but it would have taken half session. So I thought, let me
Yeah.
cut down.
I'm honored. Honored, Vinny. Thank you.
Great, Clifford. So good to see you on this channel of Unlimited Potential Inside. So I wanted to discuss. Let's start with this, Clifford. From your childhood, what was your childhood like? If you want to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Vinny, see, my childhood was, just like, any other child. Of course, difficult times. Yeah. And I was born in a nuclear family, and to a my father was a Saraswat Brahmin, and my mom a Christian, and that obviously added to some complexities. Lower middle class, and of course, with my dad who expired when I was 10. Mom, of course, did not really make us feel as if he was not around, ensured that taken care, but obviously we had difficult times, financial challenges, and I remember even as part of my college education, I did tuitions. And Bombay is, Mumbai is a great place to be when it comes to, for those who really want to make it for themselves. Yeah. So I remember doing tuitions across, after college. I used to go to Breach Candy, some of those tall buildings there, and then after that, Tardio, and other places. And of course, my last tuition, I remember, was late evening, around 9 o'clock, when I would have some three nurses and and an MCOM student who wanted to learn, who wanted to go abroad and who wanted to learn English communication skills. So that was a great, again, another great opportunity for me. But I think those that the kind of rigor that I had to put in, and which of course circumstances pushed me into it. But then I think that really made me what I am today. As a student, I've been a pretty average. I remember having those red lines in Hindi, Marathi, maths. I have those days we used to get a booklet, so I have that booklet still.
Uh-huh.
And I remember in one of my LinkedIn posts I'd also published it, because very ordinary student. But then I think over the years I progressed. So I think in 11th standard I came first in class. In the 12th I was top 10 in the board. And then in graduation sociology, of course, I got a scholarship from the HRD ministry, which was very helpful because my mom was going through a difficult time. She went through a lockout in her organization, and she had to take another job at that moment of time. So and then of course in my masters I got some free ships and scholarships, which actually helped me in my education, along with mom supporting. Of course I told my mom, for any higher education I will take care of my own. So these free ships and scholarships, and some friends who were very close to me, who saw me wanting to make ends meet, who really helped me also. And of course my first job I paid their parents back. So yeah, that was great. So a great opportunity for me to make it happen for myself, but great people around me who helped me to make it happen.
Amazing, Clifford. I think that's what is called, I believe, rags to riches story. So, coming from there, where you had so much of challenges, and then you're such a successful corporate leader today, and that's so inspiring to hear. If I
Thank you.
ask you, Clifford, to share some lessons that you learned during your childhood, which is still with you, can you talk about some of those lessons?
Yeah, yeah. See, in fact, Vinit, when I go back to my childhood, and especially the fact that today, while being an HR professional, I am a mentor, a coach, I realize a lot of what I do today goes back to my childhood. I
Mhm,
remember in school, as I told you, I was a very average student, but then I was pretty active in extracurricular activities. So I was part of the school band. I landed up being the major after taking the drums, the flute, the bugle, and then taking on the. I remember in school, not very average, but one principal, and I mean, he's no more now, but I remember Father Anthony in
mhm,
St. Joseph School, Umar Khadi in Mumbai.
mhm, mhm,
He was, I mean, I don't know, was it because I didn't have a dad, or he saw me kind of working hard, but he kind of nudged me. He nudged
mhm,
me to become the head boy of the school. I remember a particular teacher, and I'm still in touch with her.
mhm.
She would actually, after classes, help me to improve my handwriting. I didn't have a great handwriting, but she actually improved. And today my handwriting is, whatever it is a lot because of what she did. And she kind of, would interact with my family, come home. I
Uh-huh.
see them as great mentors and coaches for me, in
Mhm,
their own small way. I remember, one of those jamborees that we had. We had this competition between various schools, and I was the major. I remember before going to the jamboree, I came to school with the entire team, and we were, in full uniform, and with as a, playing one song before we leave for the competition. And I remember the principal came, and we had to salute him, and then he, called me. He called me to his room. Uh, and I was like wondering what was he wanting to tell me. He just went in. He bought a bottle of scent. He sprayed it on me. Not that I was, smelling dirty, but it was just his way of saying that, boss, go do a good job. So these are small things which, actually today when I look back, I said it impacted me too. And that's why today, I mean, maybe they were my first lessons in mentoring and coaching. And
mhm,
today, because of which I have that attitude of, wanting to see how I can possibly touch people's lives, either through my mentoring, to my coaching, or through my HR profession itself.
mhm.
So while obviously, adding value to the business is, obviously a co role from an HR professional context to see how we can enable the business. But I think this is something which is there, and that provides me a lot of satisfaction in my job.
Amazing, amazing. That's great. So, as you said, I think those the people around you, they actually help you to understand the importance of coaching and mentoring, and that still stays with you.
Yeah.
Great. Clifford, since you had a difficult childhood, and most of us, when we have this difficult childhood, then it's very hard to aspire for something, because you want to just fix things which are around you, right?
Yeah,
And since you are so successful, just wanted to understand from you, what were your aspirations, your career goals when you were young?
yeah. That's a good question, Vineet, because one is, of course, my mother was a great influence on me. Since my dad expired, of course, she was a great influence, and I saw her working hard. Yeah, great work ethic. I remember as a child, go to her. One of those days where I think children are allowed to the office. Even in those days, I remember breaking, uh, getting all the typewriter keys mixed up, uh, but I saw that work ethic, great work, and great confidence. To call a spade, to do things, and to also command great respect from the bosses and colleagues. That definitely influenced me. But as I grew up, I realized I wanted to possibly do something uh, for the people around my environment. And one thing that struck me was possible social work. And Baba Amte in those days, Mother Teresa, and all the work that was happening in her institutes impressed me. Somewhere along the line, with my exposure to social workers, somewhere I got disillusioned.
Mm.
And that's around that time I met this person by the name of Augustin Malia, who was the
Mhm.
head of HR of Mercedes Benz, Daimler
Mhm.
Chrysler, those
Mhm.
days.
Mhm.
And having interacted with him, he invited me to his factory, and I saw something, and I really liked so while the people angle was there,
Mhm.
but what he was pretty impressive, and of course I'm still in touch with him. He's now retired, but a great human being and a great HR professional. I think that is what created. So while that people orientation was there to get into the disillusionment, of course, and then of course the HR stream that then started. I remember, Vineet, and I'll tell you two examples, and I hope not stretching the response. I remember those days, and in your youth, right, as a youngster,
Mhm.
you want to do something different. You want to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
I remember I told my mom, of course, she was very upset about it, but I did it.
Mhm.
I went on a 28 days experiment out
Wow.
on the road with just one kurta, one pajama, and a pair of rubber slippers with no money in my pocket. I contacted an NGO and I spent 28 days on the road
Wow.
with, with rag pickers. That was an experience. I mean, of course, I remember those days the rate of plastic and paper had
Uh,
decreased because of which the rag pickers said they stopped working.
uh,
Sleeping on the footpath in Cross Maidan, and feeling as if no bed sheet, no pillow, nothing.
mhm. Mhm.
As if a car will come onto you. You feel. Then of course, because the price of plastic went down, they started working in a lot of weddings where I remember it was the month of December. So going and cleaning vessels. That was a great experience. We said, wow, without anything, you can still survive. And that's what, and sometimes, running in the night from the policemen because they also wanted to, fill their jails. So, running away from them and, they obviously saw something different. At one point of time, I remember somebody said, "Ye tum alag dekh rahe ho." So I kind of nudged and went away. So that was one experiment. And of course, my mom was very, because, I didn't have, no, those days, no mobiles, nothing.
Uh-huh.
So it was a great experiment, but an experiment which taught me that, life is much larger and that, there is a power uh, within the universe, which can, if you can trust, it can actually help you in a lot of things. I remember one more experiment which I did
Yeah.
was spending about again 28 days in the Mother Teresa's home, where
Mhm.
4:30 in the morning you go and you actually give a bath to some of these diseased inmates, and
Mhm.
you give them a bath, and suddenly when you're giving them a bath you realize the person is no more.
Mhm.
He died last night. So,
Nice.
that is an experience which, makes you think of life much larger than what you're doing and, just the
Yeah.
narrow. it broadens your horizon. And that's when I thought, I think that will give me great satisfaction working with people. And I think my HR profession, my which I'm very happy that I got it right straight, and I'm very happy
Mhm.
that I'm in HR, and an HR professional through HRCI, and of course, finally, of course, into mentoring and coaching, which I enjoy doing.
Amazing. I think particularly I was just visualizing the scenario when you said that you had this experience of 28 days being with rag pickers and policemen were also there and all those challenges. I was just thinking about it, and then the other experience with Mother Teresa. How old were you at that time when you?
I
Uh,
had just completed, my 12th standard. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Soon
sorry,
after,
you just finished your.
soon after my 12th standard. Yeah,
Oh my God! So must
yeah,
be
yeah,
hardly around 17 or 18
yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah. Correct,
Amazing. So I'm sure that might have, as you said, I think that kind of defined you as a person, right? And you were able to see larger picture. Amazing, amazing. People go for vacation for 10 days, 20 days, and you actually experience yourself, and that too in those situations. Amazing.
yeah. Thank you.
Is and I'm sure we can have some sessions, some podcasts just on that. What was your experience in Mother Teresa, and that sounds so adventurous and so inspiring. So before we move to the core of this, Clifford, around the ethical, how do we demonstrate ethical behavior in organization and workplace, and even at a personal life, I just wanted to, if you can help me with, because you had these amazing experiences. Was there any experience which connected with this attitude of being ethical in your practice, practicing these, demonstrating those ethical practices in your
Mhm.
childhood or during these kind of experiences that you had?
Yeah, yeah. So Vineet, I think when I look back, I think my mother was has been a great role model. Yeah, she
Mhm.
just passed away in September. A great role model for me because I remember when as a child, uh, one is working very hard to make ends meet, but still spending time with family. Please, still taking care of the family very well and ensuring that I possibly matured very fast because my dad expired at 10. So I was also pretty sensitive not to ask for a lot of things. Understanding her financial situation, never a
Mhm, mhm,
child
mhm.
asked for more.
Yeah.
But then I remember, and of course, I told you also about my principal and my teacher who helped me.
Mhm,
I think around that time, I got exposed to Tony Robbins.
mhm.
Yeah. And, I remember the book Giant Steps.
The
That
giant
was
step.
one book, Tony Robbins does not know, but he's my mentor.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, he's my mentor, and you
My
know,
mentor as well.
absolutely, yeah. So just reading his book, just practicing what he talked. I remember one of those things which he talked about. He talked about prayerizing, visualizing, and actualizing, which was a fantastic thing, which actually I got to practice, and I saw a lot of miracles actually happening in my life, just putting that, just visualizing the power of the mind, right? Because he was a lot into NLP, at least at one point of time.
Yeah.
So uh, you know just putting those, some of those practices actually helped me a lot, um, influenced me significantly, uh, you know, to actually, I didn't realize today we are talking about ethical behavior, but the fact, I think that is a great influence on my life in terms of the ethical practices, which and I'm obviously very happy to be in an organization which is also very well known globally for its ethical practices, for its value driven culture and organization, for its value based decisions. So when there is a healthy blend of an individual and the environment you're in, then I think that blend happens very well.
Amazing, great, great, and that reminds me. I think Tony Robbins always gives that formula of doing something that actually probably he uses the NLP practice there as well. So amazing, good to hear that. So let's move on to the section, Clifford, and let's talk about the leaders and organizations on these lines. And I wanted to understand from you on how can leaders be a good example for their teams. It's very easy again, not easy, but I'll say that being ethical, I think most of us are very ethical in our own way, right? But how do we demonstrate that? Sometimes setting your example, because if you don't talk about those things, if you, one is action is important. By seeing your action, automatically people will follow, but then you have to kind of, when you explain people, when you discuss with people, right? So how do you do about that? How can leaders set an example like that for their team regarding integrity, overall ethical behavior and all that, since you have been in this for long,
Absolutely.
almost 3 decades? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good question, Vinit. So see, I think one thing is that we've got to define who is a leader. Yeah. Uh, you know, Obviously there is a difference between a manager and a leader, but the fact that leaders are not expected to be perfect. Yeah, leaders don't need to have all the answers. That's my definition of a leader. A leader does not need to have all the answers. A leader um, can be vulnerable, yeah, in herself. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it is imperative for for a leader to obviously have high integrity standards and obviously articulate the expectations of those high standards with the team. But I think the more important thing is just to be herself. A leader need to be just needs to be herself, needs to be authentic. Because if you are putting on a mask, you're putting on a show, it's going to be it's going to be seen very clearly. So there is obviously no difference between possibly your personal life and your professional life. It's you as an individual. And if you come to the workspace in an authentic manner, that itself I believe will make a great difference. I can tell you that you know in Infosys, for example, the organization that I belong to has got something called C Life as its values. So C stands for client value, L stands for leadership by example, I stands for integrity, F stands for fairness and transparency, and E stands for excellence, which is not a not a destination, but it's a journey. Now, it's good to have it on the wall, it's good to have it on your policy manuals, but in the practice of it, in the decisions that you make, where possibly you have to say no to business in the interest of, integrity, I think that's practice of it. As leaders, I think you are expected to be authentic. You're expected to allow for promoting of experimentation.
Mm.
If you allow your team to fail, and allow them to fail. It's okay to fail and give them that permission to fail.
Mhm.
Obviously, while taking calculated risks to ensure
Mhm.
that the organization is still in safe hands. And then, of course, communicating in an impactful manner. See, communicating leaders, I believe, communicate very well. Most leaders communicate well,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think leaders forget that a part of communication is also listening. And we forget the listening angle, right? We talk about communication. So everybody wants to talk, oh, this is something which is expected from you, but how many are really listening? I
Yeah.
remember a recent survey. We did a design thinking survey sometime recently on a specific subject. And I remember when we had gone down to ground, people on the ground told us, their biggest problem was where leaders were not listening to them. It was
Mm.
not about, the money which was causing attrition. It was not money, other things which were caused, but it was the listening. Saying if only our leaders listen to us, we have a lot of solutions. We are in a position to even deal with our clients, the end clients.
Yeah.
So I think, so as I said, it's imperative for leaders to be eventually servant leaders. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Serve with empathy
Mhm.
and also sharing an ability to display vulnerabilities. And I
Mhm.
believe if when we talk about walking the talk and talking the walk, I think it's about this. So no amount of yes, obviously we need to communicate to the team what is expected. You need to set high standards of integrity, but if you are not, for example, you expect everybody to come on time to a meeting, but if you yourself are not on time,
Yeah.
you're walking the talk, right? You're not walking. So I think very simple aspects. And I think I think some of the leaders I have experienced, I think, are they don't talk a lot about about ethical standards, values. Yes, you know There are organizations who have very clear, you have got to take a survey, you've got to sign off on formats, all those things. But eventually, it all depends on the leader there, starting right
Mhm.
from the CEO. Is he walking the talk of what he's saying? What is there in the manuals? I think that will make a lot of difference. Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing. So being vulnerable, and I know I've seen many leaders, they are not comfortable to be vulnerable. You said that that's one of the superpower that one can have, walking the talk. Amazing. I think walking the talk gave a great example. If I'm myself coming late, I can't expect others to be on coming exactly on time. And then you also talked about how communication is also important, and somewhere, yeah, leaders have that good communication skills. Most of that's where they become leaders. I think that's one of the parameters that is checked whether you are a good communicator or not. So on similar lines, I just wanted to understand from you on this, Clifford, is it's not easy because you have to get your work done as well in the corporates, right? So and then having open and honest communication all the time sometimes it's not easy for the leaders, right? And I know that you have been doing this, so wanted to understand from you, how do you do that? How do you make your communication very open and honest whenever you are having a discussion with your team, with leaders and everyone?
Yeah, it's a good, very good question, because I think it's all to do with ground reality. And I'm happy that Vinit, that the, all along the questions that you're asking me are not, there on up in the cloud. They're very grounded. Really happy to be there, and in that sense, yeah. So I think, see, Vinit, what I've realized is that what I've already spoken in terms of authenticity, transparency. See, if, at the outset, when you are being authentic, when you're being real, when you're displaying your vulnerabilities, when you're transparent to the core, somewhere your team may feel a little odd, because that's not what they're used to,
Yeah,
right? But if you're in the long term game and not necessarily in the short term, they get you, they understand. you know this is a leader who I would love to work with, because when he's displaying his failures or his vulnerabilities, his mistakes, it obviously provides me license to also make mistakes,
yeah,
right? It also allows me to be myself. And I think I was talking to you some time ago, was with regarding to the strengths based leadership.
yeah,
For every leader, I think, you have a team, say you have a team of 8 folks, right? Each of them, and in as part of their own developmental agenda, you normally focused on the areas of development. Absolutely, no doubt, you've got to do that. But if you can cull out the strengths of each individual, and as a leader, if you're able to understand and cull out the strengths of each individual, then any project that you want to deliver is going to be a success, because you're culling out the strengths of your team together, and that getting messed up is going to be a winning combination. And that is what, I believe, if every leader practices. So one is, as I said, walking the talk, authenticity, transparency, all those things that we, talk about, but allowing for mistakes, allowing for risk taking, and then using that strengths based approach to get the team, you are definitely going to be a winning combination, whatever function you are, whichever organization that you are. So I think that is, it is today a given, because leaders don't have all the answers, and if they think that they have the answers, then they are mistaken. And I think if you communicate to the team saying, "Hey, boss, I don't have them all the answers, I need to learn from you." The guy who joined from B school yesterday is somebody who possibly you as a senior leader will possibly learn a lot from, rather than you thinking that you have all the answers,
yeah.
or you go and tell them how to do things. Because I believe people are pretty intelligent, they know how to do things, they know. Yeah, it's about just possibly nudging them at times to make things happen.
Amazing, amazing. I think, and also on top of it, you mentioned in the previous discussion that somewhere that listening, right? We so if You gave a great example. Let's say somebody has come from a top B school and you have a 25, 30 years of experience. So it's not easy to listen to him, right? If I connect with the same thing. So we may listen to respond, as they say, or react rather, than, listening to respond. And if we start practicing that, probably there will be a time people will automatically that and we will automatically encourage people to be honest and people to be discussing, having a very open discussion. Thank you so much,
No,
Clifford, for that.
I have this one, formula which I recently keep fooling with my, directs. Sometimes when we, and now, when we are working in the hybrid world, you
Hmm.
know, you're having a cup of coffee, or you're, possibly, maybe while at some point of time it was known that, eating while talking may not be the best thing to do, but I find that as a great formula to listen. So I tell my team, you can talk because I am listening. And the best way for, and especially for leaders, I mean, I myself, I'm struggling with, listening. And I believe that I need to be a better listener. If I, use a cup of coffee and, spend time with my coffee sipping, it's a good way to keep my mouth shut. And listen to my team. So I mean, I kind of fool with my team, and they also laugh about it. It gives me, of course, the license to possibly, because it's a stretch day, so munch something or have a cup of coffee, but also it's an opportunity for me to listen. It's a great formula for a lot of leaders to possibly follow.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea, and the moment you say it very specifically, because sometimes team is also not used to getting listened by leaders. So the moment you say that I'm listening and you're sipping your coffee, whatever, but the moment you have triggered this, I think it automatically probably people will think, yes, looks like now I have a chance to say, and maybe and I see a good comment from Ruchi Dubey. She says authentic leader allowing for failures, allowing for risk taking, that you mentioned earlier. Amazing, great. So moving on, Clifford, even after all these things that you said, there will be situations where they will get into some ethical dilemmas,
Right,
right?
right,
Where shall I do this? Shall I do that? In that situation, so how do you handle those kind of ethical dilemma? If you can give us an example, and yeah.
sure, sure. I think No, I think it's a good question. I think in my 3 decades of experience in five different industries and five different companies, I've had some great experiences and some very challenging experiences also. As HR, you are an enabling function. You're not the line function, and but then you have a seat at the table, and I think you have a responsibility, to also challenge the status quo. And I remember in one of those. Uh, one of those companies where I, uh, you know, one of my few companies where we had this branch in Jamshedpur, and there was this branch manager, great team there, and I used to do my routine, one-on-ones and my routine open houses with them, and then I got to, there was one person who kind of told me and tipped me on something which was not in place.
Hmm.
And I got a little uncomfortable about it, but then I said, let me, before jumping the gun, let me just do some kind of research and investigation. And I did that. And I got to see that, a lot of the company resources were being used for, individual gain
Hmm.
at the leadership level. And I said, no, this is not on. And I obviously created my report. I sent it to the CEO directly and the HR head. And it was a great acknowledgement. They patted my back saying that, wow, good, very good. But I didn't see any action. And I was wondering, okay, they've acknowledged. They have said, yes, I think it's something which is serious, but they've
Hmm.
not done anything and they've not even given me the go ahead to go ahead and do it. And I was
Hmm.
a junior HR person there. And then I asked my boss, I followed up with my CEO saying that, what's happening. And
Hmm.
then when I looked a little deep, I saw, and mind you, this organization also had great values. They also practiced a lot. It's not like
Hmm.
I was in an organization which did not practice its values.
Hmm.
But then I got to, then I looked a little deeper and I found that this particular senior leader was actually in discussion with a very big conglomerate in Jamshedpur.
Mm-hmm.
for business, and they were just about to sign the deal.
Uh-huh.
It was so important for the leader to continue to stay there to sign
Yeah.
the deal. So therefore, that kind of a slight delay had to take
Uh-huh.
place, and then of course, finally, of course, I was given the green signal to go ahead and take action. But the fact is that by the time it was
Mm-hmm.
already a few months and greater damage to the organization and the credibility of the organization in that town,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the public got to know of what was happening in the Jubilee Park and things. So that was an example. But as I said, uh, being an HR professional, or I think every leader, if you see something, while you can have an opportunity to whistleblow, but I think raising it and then consistently going, just raising it may not really help, because there are business, and especially in the corporate world, where there are you know business decisions to be made. And it's not like possibly the leaders don't acknowledge the challenge, but I think that's where an alignment with the business to ensure that you work together to eventually go after, and then of course sift the wheat from the chaff in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Great, great. So I come from Bihar, and I understand it's not easy to,
Absolutely.
practically practice ethical practices in some of the situations, tier two cities, Jamshedpur, and all that. But no judgments there.
Oh, yeah, but and I remember it was quite a trying experience, because I had to go undercover. I was based those days in Kolkata, and I had to travel undercover,
Oh my
getting into a hotel, because anything could happen, right?
God.
And I was
Yeah,
told of a lot of stories which could then put your life in danger. So you still
yeah,
had to do the thing and still go undercover. Yes, great experience.
yeah, yeah. Cool. So, Clifford, let's talk about the third important thing that we wanted to talk about was around coaching.
Yeah,
And coaching, again, I think it starts with the first competency, which is demonstrating ethical practice. So just wanted to understand from you, how does one as a coach can demonstrate ethical practices?
yeah. No, absolutely. I think. While ICF is very clearly defined its competencies, and I think I've been part of chapters, and I'm part of the ICF Pune chapter also, where I have a great demonstration from coaches. I think very important, and especially when to be very very honest with your coachee. Yeah, what is it that you can help, and what is it that you can coach in, and what is it that you can't. Yeah, I think being frank, being open with your coachee, I think is open. Many a times you have to challenge your coachee, right? Because and that's the job of a coach, to
Yeah.
challenge him, challenge her. uh, in that context, you know being a mirror to the coachee and being
Mhm.
honest in what you see during the coaching, uh, you know, and being very frank, because you know it's important for you to call a spade even there,
Yeah.
uh, and it is at the risk of losing business with your
Yeah.
coachee. But then, are you ready to step up and with courtesy to show that mirror to the coachee? So I think that's definitely about ethical coaching. It's also when we are dealing with corporates, right?
Mhm.
You would normally tie up with a business or with an HR guy, right,
Mhm.
as coach, and being very upfront that what is it that you will share about the coaching with the leadership or with the HR, and what you will not,
Mhm.
and also stating that very clearly with the coachee, what is possible and what is not possible. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I think they being setting those ground rules right at the outset, I think does help. Setting the expectations with corporates, with whom you signed the contract, I think does help. Dealing with colleagues, you know
Yeah.
peer coaches, right, who
Yeah.
in an ethical manner, and especially everybody is obviously wanting business. Okay,
Yeah.
and how do you deal with your peer coach in
Yeah.
that context, who possibly has also got a contract
Yeah.
with the same corporate, right? How do you
Mhm.
deal, how what are your dealings there? And then as I said, challenging the environment, the entire ethos, whether it's the corporate, whether it's the, your fellow coach, your peer coach, or your coachee. I believe all of this, is very clearly embodied in the code of conduct per se
Yeah.
of ICF. Uh, I see a lot of great examples,
Hmm.
around. Uh, I definitely see that, among the ICF coaches. I don't have an exposure to, non-ICF coaches, but I think I think it's a fantastic, um, you know, very clear scheme to, to say what is okay and what is not okay, and I see
Yeah.
that among a lot of coaches. So I believe that even one miss on this could cause great damage to the to coaches as well as to the coaching fraternity. So I think it's so imperative for every coach to practice that. I mean, obviously the others, but that very clear, because it is actually the future of coaching, both in the workplace and of course otherwise.
Amazing, Clifford. Amazing, and I always believe that we coaches somewhere can bring ethical practices. I think, as you said, the competency itself gives us so many ideas around practicing the ethical, demonstrating the ethical behavior. I think we can help improve the community, people around us, to to bring this more into practice. Thank you so much, Clifford, for bringing that point. From a coaching perspective, since I know that last year itself you finished your PCC as well, so just wanted to understand from you, even after this much of experience and this much of work in the industry, what is something that keeps you in this mode of learning and improving as a leader? And if you can talk about something that you still are working on improving yourself as a leader.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, great question. No, see, I think, possibly, I've told you some stories about my childhood and the kind of possible grind that I had to go through. I think possibly that led me to say that, or somewhere my philosophy, which it impacted, saying that you've got to work hard, you've got to be the best, you've got to be grounded, as well as, from a domain context, you've got to be deep there, because otherwise, what's the difference between you and anybody else, right? So for example, from being an HR professional, what's the difference? I mean, you have a lot of folks from the non-HR fraternity coming into the HR, which is good. I think it's a
Like
good
me.
thing that it happens. Yeah, absolutely, like you. So it's a very good thing, and we've had, quite a few of our colleagues, even while we were doing our PCC together, Vinit, we had quite a few
Yeah.
folks who came from finance, and others who got
Right.
into
I remember
the
Aditya, he comes
domain.
from finance.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
who came to the HR, I mean, and HR and coaching domain.
Yeah.
So it's important for you to be there. But I think if you have to be credible, right? If you have to be credible, then you have to have this journey of saying constant learning and consistent learning. It's that E which I called in the C life, for the
Yes.
C, Infosys values, which is excellence, right? Where excellence is not a destination; it's a journey. So
Mhm.
the moment you reach one milestone, you're kind of going for the other. So learning is very, very clear, and I tell a lot of my employees, and especially in town halls and all, we talk about it, and everybody wants more money, right, in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Saying that, why are we paying less? Because after the first salary, the motivation level goes down, right? You're happy with your promotion, with your progression, and you're very happy with that. You've got a first salary. After that first salary, again gone. You know, so I keep saying, boss, that if you really want to, do well in life, if you want to earn more money, for the youngsters, I say focus on Goddess Saraswati.
Mhm.
Focus on Goddess Saraswati. She's the embodiment of knowledge, of
Correct.
enlightenment,
Mhm.
uh, you know, of learning. Focus
Mhm.
on her.
Mhm.
The fact that you focus on her, Goddess Lakshmi will come by. And this is something which I remember reading what Amir Khan actually quoted in one of the Economic Times some time ago. It was a great example for me.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that, if you as an individual, as a leader, as a professional, keep yourself constantly active, learning, you know, and that's why, from whether it's the HR certification that I've taken and I consistently renew, or my coaching. I also have a certification in mentoring to through Dheya. I am already exploring this. But if you ask me, and I'm looking at other challenges already in terms of learning, whether it's something as an HR professional to add value from a finance context, or
Mhm.
for example other avenues that I'm looking at in the year 2023.
Mhm.
But as I said, one of the things that as a leader, I believe that I should definitely move up the value chain in terms of my listening. Yeah, because I think that whether you're mentoring, whether you're coaching, whether you're an HR professional, whether you're talking to leaders or you're talking to people, I think listening is a very important element. And listening, is be and in like how in coaching we learned, right? It's about
Yeah.
being in that moment.
Yeah.
It's dancing to the tune, yeah, along with your audience, along with
Yeah.
your coachee, along with your mentee. So
Yeah.
being there in that present moment, I think is it adds great value of just being there. Um, a lot of challenges which possibly your mentee is going through, your coachee or your audience, uh, I think half of that is sorted just by listening.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful tool, and I think somewhere we have not understood the power of listening. And I think I really wish that a lot of leaders will listen, being there 100%, because I believe a lot of potential can be got out of people just by listening.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Clifford. Yeah, and as you said, dance in the moment happens only if you listen. So otherwise, you can only make people dance on your tunes.
Nice one, yeah. That's it.
So amazing, Clifford. Thank you so much. We are just at the end of the this session, and at the end of the session, Clifford, what would be your message to the leaders, coaches, and everyone who is watching this session? Anything as a takeaway that you want them to take away here?
Yeah, good question, Vineet. So, Vineet, I think for everyone who's listening in, I think being authentic, being yourself. You don't have to put on a mask. Yeah, I know the pandemic led us to put extra masks on ourselves, but I think here's an opportunity. I think we don't need to be, going about. Just be yourself. Be the husband you want to be the parent, be the daughter, be the son that you want to be. You don't need to be a boss. I mean, I think the boss is a very, for me, it's a very negative word. I think being a great colleague, a great supervisor, being credible, walking the talk, talking the walk. Because I believe if you are seriously interested in touching people's lives, then I think the most important thing is for you to love people and use things, and not use people and love things. So I think that's very important. You know, if you really want to touch people's lives, it's not about you know what you say or how you say it, but eventually it's about how you make people feel at the end of the day. That is what they're going to remember. It's not about, you may be screaming, yelling at them, but if you've got a great motive, if you really are a benevolent leader, then they know it, that even though you're yelling and screaming at them, the intent is right, and they will remember what you have made them feel. They'll not remember the words, they'll not remember the tone, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And I think that's the beauty of it all. So if we can, i think I think, and I believe that's one way of making the world a better place, whether you're in a corporate or you're in any other situation. I think that's what we can influence and make the world a better place. You're on mute.
Amazing, Clifford. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. So great points you made. I think somewhere I like that line when you say that love people, you love people, use things, don't use people and love things. Amazing. That's going to I'm going to remember this for a long time, Clifford. And so many other points you made, being as a leader, being vulnerable, being very authentic, you know, having that learning mindset, and particularly. Uh, having that listening skill, not just listening to just to react, but listening empathetically. I think that's so important. Thank you so much, Clifford, for coming here and sharing so many great nuggets, so many insights from your experience. So 30 years of experience, we can kind of get a gist of it in this 40-45 minutes of session. Thank you so much, Clifford, for coming here.
Thank you, Vinith, for having me. I think this journey has been a great learning experience. You're the great tech guy. I think I'm going to look forward to a lot more learning from you. Thank you, Vinith, for having me.
Thank you so much, Clifford. Thanks for saying me a tech guy. Now I'm trying to evolve from being a tech guy, but
Absolutely. Absolutely.
through this coaching and all that. Thank you for sharing and inspiring us, all of us. I'm sure everyone who has watched this and who will keep on watching this on my channel, I'm sure they are going to benefit a lot, particularly the coaches, the people who are professionals in the workplace. It helped me a lot, and I'm sure this community will be getting so many helpful things from here. Thank you so much, Clifford, and thank you so much, friends, for being here. Thank you for listening to this session, to this podcast. We'll meet you in the next episode of Up Talks with Vineet, with maybe another achiever who can add value to our lives the way Clifford has added today. Till then, keep unleashing your unlimited potential inside you. Thank you so much. Bye.